Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. My name is Handrij Härtel, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our today's lecture. As you perhaps know, this lecture is held within the framework of the project with the title Trends in Nature Conservation. And this is a project funded by Norway grants and implemented by the Charles University Faculty of Science in Prague in the form of series of lectures held by both international and national experts. Before I will welcome our distinguished guest, I would like to give you some technical information regarding organization of this lecture. First, this lecture will take approximately 1 hour, and then we'll have the discussion. Please note that this lecture will be recorded and later uploaded on the YouTube channel of this project. If you have any questions or comments, you can use chat during the presentation, and we will go through these questions after the presentation. You can find the chat icon on the bottom toolbar. Or you can raise question directly after the presentation. In this case, please indicate your interest by raising a hand. This is the icon raise hand on the bottom toolbar under the reactions. Okay, and now allow me to welcome our guest. It's my great pleasure to introduce Mrs. Erika Stanciu to you. Erika will talk today about nature conservation in Romania. Erika is an international nature conservation expert working for various conservation bodies on both national and international level. For instance, Erika works in the EUROPARC Foundation, focusing on the protection of the biodiversity and wilderness in Romania. In the past, Erika was director of the Härtel National Park in Romania and also president of the EUROPARC Federation. And now, most recently, Erika became the IUCN WCPA regional vice chair for Europe. WCPA is the World Commission on Protected Areas of the IUCN. So, Erika, welcome again in our course, and I'm pleased to give you the floor now.
Thank you very much, Handrij. Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be with you, even though in these still very strange conditions for me. Even after 2 years, it's difficult for me to get used to speak to a screen, but I hope I'll be fine. First of all, I would like just to say that I was really nicely surprised to learn that you, the Czech colleagues, want to learn more about what is happening in Romania in terms of conservation. And first, when Michael asked me to present some facts and the situation on conservation in Romania, I really asked, why Romania? And why are you interested in Romania? And he told me that there are lots of stories, probably some fake news around the conservation world, and you in the project wanted to learn more about what the real situation is. So I'm happy to try to do that. I'll try to do my best. I'm sure I'm not going to cover everything, and might be that in some areas I'm not really up to date, but I will mention when I'm not sure what the situation is. So please bear with me, have a little bit of patience. I don't know everything, and I will try to give you a realistic picture. I was asked to say the good things. I will say the good things, but I will not avoid to say when we have issues, and we all have issues in conservation, so I can't avoid those either. So allow me to share the screen. Thank you, Handrij, for saying a few words about me. I hope everybody can see my screen now. Is that okay? Yes. So yes, I started as a forester. I did study forestry. There were no conservation studies in those days, in my days, back many, many years ago. So I went into the area which was the most practical conservation related area in our country, and I became a forester. I still love this domain. I still feel very, very attached to forest. But I have to say that I started as a conservation forester, and I was really very much interested in old growth forest in those times, and still am. We did not call them pristine or ancient forest yet back in the 80s. So just for you to have an idea when I started to work as a forester. Within the national forestry, then I had a fantastic chance to get into a World Bank project where we established actually the practical conservation system, management system for protected areas. The Retezat National Park, our oldest national park, established in 1935, was one of the model areas, and there were two others, Piatra Craiului National Park and Vânător Neamț Nature Park, with bison reintroduction at the same time. And that's where we started to build up from paper parks to a protected area system, our Romanian protected areas. And that was an extraordinary period in my time, setting up the team, participating in the first protected area law, and so on. Then, well, I did leave from Retezat, although I thought I will never do that, but life is life and takes you to paths that you didn't think. So I had to leave for personal reasons, and I joined an international NGO, but here in Romania, it was just establishing the first bricks, putting the first bricks in Romania, the WWF Danube Carpathian program. And I worked in the Carpathian region on forests and protected areas. And I think I've seen some of the names on the screen, which sound familiar from those times when we had joint projects. It's true, less in Czech Republic, quite a few in Ukraine and in Slovakia, also along the Danube in Bulgaria, but in this Danube Carpathian region, I had quite a few contacts with colleagues, conservationists like you. Then came back home from many travels and contacts in the region and established the ProPark Foundation for Protected Areas, which has the main mission to build capacity for protected area management for managers and stakeholders through various methods, including projects. And then again, another surprise in my life and another interesting, let's call it a little bit of deviation, a little bit of work on the political, on the policy arena, not the political one, sorry. I had the chance to be in the technocratic government in 2016 as Secretary of State for Forests, and where we did a lot to try and push conservation with my colleague from the Biodiversity Department. And lots of other involvements, EUROPARC Federation, the NGO Coalition in Romania, and now the World Commission for Protected Areas. But let's go into the fairy tales and the real estate. Well, the real fairy tale about Romania is actually the biodiversity, the country we have. I will refer to fake news also at some point, but when I saw the title, I thought I am not going to ask to change that, because I really think that I am living like in a fairy tale in this country. And I think we can say that all of us in the eastern region, especially countries that have beautiful mountains and large rivers and rural areas, but somehow, however much I'm traveling or even having the chance perhaps to move, I never felt this need, because I am living in a fairy tale. And I'm going to give you just very briefly a few images and a few data, mainly to try to put the basis of why biodiversity conservation is so important for Romania and why Romania is so important for Europe. Yes, we have some of the wildest unfragmented mountain range in Europe with very rich alpine meadows. And yes, we have large tracts of natural unfragmented forests. And here, some of the recent studies say that despite the many pressures, especially from illegal logging, about which I'm going to speak a little bit, we still have about 78% of the Romanian forest with a high degree of naturalness. And perhaps our forestry system, which is, yes, very much affected after forest restitution and after the forest management orientated itself more towards profit, it was changed, but not the basics. So we still have natural regeneration based forest management, and we still have a lot of natural forests. And yes, you all know probably that we have, we like to think that we are the last region in Europe with viable populations of large carnivores. Maybe it's sometimes you will feel like I'm a little bit exaggerating with this last, the best, and so on. I will try not to do it so much. But you see, we are proud of what we have, and you know how proud people present their countries or home places. So I hope I'm not annoying with these qualifying words. But yes, it seems that we have about 8,000 brown bears, although should have put here probably a question mark, because that's one of the issues which we didn't solve yet. An inventory and good monitoring of the brown bear population. We speak about this. It says that the data we have now says that we have about 4,000 wolves and about 3,000 lynx in Romania. Over half of Europe's virgin forests are here. And from the National Forest Inventory, a very good database, it seems that we have about 1.5% of our forests still qualifiable as pristine or almost pristine forests. This almost pristine forest might sound strange to you. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this term, but we call almost pristine forests the ones that have a few signs of intervention here and there on the fringes maybe, but less than on 5% of the forest area. So actually, those are still pristine. And we have the largest high nature value grasslands and wood pastures in Central Europe. There are some data here. It seems that we have now about 170 square kilometers of wooded pastures. And this is the largest area, the third largest area in Europe. The hay meadows, I'm sure you have this in the Czech Republic, but I can't stop being really, really, really amazed whenever I see these meadows around me. There is some data here, however, under some question mark, some information based mainly on the Korean land cover. That's why it is actually with a question mark, say that we have about 30% of agricultural land still considered as or possible to be put in the high nature value farmland category. Lots of species, I'm not insisting on this one. Yes, free roaming European bison, and it seems that at least specialists say that now we have 3 groups which are more or less stable and give good hope for the actual success of reintroduction. And yes, here we are in the Carpathian ecoregion, incorporating a lot of most of the Carpathians. Most of the Carpathians are with Romania, and we are one of the, I mean, actually, I think we are the richest country in terms of biogeographical regions, if we count them. I think, yes, I think Romania has most of the biogeographic regions, and one of the big values for our biodiversity is this steppe biogeographical region, because it seems that at least on the European side, we are the only country to have that. We still like to believe that the map that shows that many of our rivers are still quite natural. Well, if we compare it to other countries, I did see a map of Bulgaria, and there was no free roaming river some 20 years ago already. But we still have some, even though there is a lot of red on our map, as you can see. So the red means rivers that were affected by some kind of interventions. There are still, especially in the Carpathian River, which are free ranging. And we have beautiful floodplain forests. But yes, I do remember that I've seen some very nice ones in the Czech Republic as well. Of course, the Danube Delta, I'm not going to read all of this species description, which is about really rare species that have home here. But I do want to highlight that the Delta and the Black Sea coast is part of Via Pontica. And that's probably an important aspect to show. But yes, it's about what we are doing with all this richness. So I'm going to step now into the part of the presentation that starts to speak about what we are doing for these biodiversity values. And I will refer very briefly to the last 30 years of changes. 30 years that were dramatical, both in changing the pressures, the threats, but also, I think, in the actions we took for biodiversity. So the old times, some of you, I didn't see your faces, but I'm sure some of you did live in those times, even if like me, for a few years of my very few years of my professional life, but I did live as a forester, already working on the field in the old times. And I would summarize that already then, back then, in those times when we were not speaking about conservation in our country, when all the protected areas, even the Retezat National Park, the old beautiful park of Romania, was a paper park, still we had people in the country who really cared about this. And one important group were the foresters. I'm not saying this because I'm a forester. I'm saying this because I had the chance to work with conservationist foresters, if I may call them like this, with a group of foresters in the county where this national park is, who were really dedicated for conservation, even without knowing the terms and even without knowing the principles necessary. But to give you an example, this group of foresters from the Hunedoara County in 1986 decided not to do anymore the sanitary cuttings in the Retezat National Park, which for Romania, it was really advanced thinking. So that's why I'm saying, and I'm always trying to tell people, especially young people, that yes, there were passionate people in those old times as well who tried to do something. Not much. We couldn't do much. They couldn't do much because, as you know, we had this system which didn't ask if you want an investment or if you want to change. There was just an order on the table. We have to do this or that. But even in these conditions, we had a committee for nature protection within the academy that tried to stop harmful investments. There were institutes for nature protection embedded in some of the institutions, but with no voice actually, and some timid tries to have some conservation, especially related to birds. And then it came the new era, which really changed the pace of life. and also the increase of threats to biodiversity and natural resources. And I'm going to very quickly go through some of them, and I'm sure they are familiar to you. But still, I think there are some peculiarities for Romania, particularities that some of, or most of the Eastern Central European countries did not experience. And the biggest one, and the one that I'm sure many of you heard, are illegal logging. However, I've put here a first slide with something that looks like, and it is technically an illegal logging, but I wrote next to this slide legal logging in a new context, because the first changes related to forest ownership and restitution were not followed immediately by changes in the legislation. So actually many of the harvesting actions were done according to the old law, allowing some strange interpretation. And that led to something that I normally, as a conservationist, I would call illegal logging, because it affected the forests as an ecosystem. But legally, if you go in some of these early strange cuttings, strange for me as a forester, strange for any forester in Romania, they were considered legal. However, yes, very soon after that, when the legislation started to catch up and started to put boundaries around the private forest management and finding solutions on how to avoid a disaster, yes, we started illegal logging. And yes, those happen mostly in private areas. Very few, yes, still present in state forests, but much lower degree, much lower areas. And this led to deforestation of large areas. I mean, what you see on the screen, it doesn't tell you how it looks and feels when you are in the middle of several hundreds hectares of bare land after you had a beautiful forest there. And that happened. And it happened a lot especially between, I think, 2005, 2004, 2005, and 2012. Since 2012, we still have illegal logging. We can speak about it a little bit if you want. I can give you some figures, but not these kind of ecological disasters, much more subtle and with less or difficult to prove impacts on visual impacts on the forest. But yes, this is one of the topics where I can't tell fairy tales, and I can't say that Romania did well, even with some very, very high efforts to try to stop it. We'll talk about the efforts later. The fragmentations, the infrastructure development, something familiar. However, why we think, and I think, that it was actually more than it should have been, right, from the perspective of development, is because it happened in a very unsustainable way. You see here two pictures. The big one is from the Retezat National Park, the small one is from the Chech Nature Park. And both are projects that were not needed for the economy or for social reasons. They were just started for some reasons which I'm not going to go into now, but anyhow, they destroyed large areas, natural areas, because they fragmented parts of protected areas without having any justification. And that hurts. Poaching, we do not have figures. This is, as you can see, a very low quality picture because it was done in a way not to be observed, but it is a fact. Unfortunately, it's still an issue, especially an increasing issue for large carnivores since we have the official hunting ban established in 2016. But here, yeah, the efforts are still very low and the results even lower in terms of stopping this. Illegal constructions, again, a very familiar topic for most of you probably. However, I'm insisting on it, and I thought it's useful to have a word about it because, for example, what you have in the picture is an illegal construction of a so-called monastery in the middle of a national park done by the church authorities without any approvals. And it worked. Nowadays, probably it wouldn't. I like to hope. But back in the early 2000s, with all the fights we had against this through court or whatever, they still succeeded to do that. Unsustainable resource exploitation, that's again probably very familiar. I'm not going to insist on this. I will tell you a few words about how these threats, which started really heavily in the beginning of the years 2000, how they evolved and what measures were taken. But these are let's say the most evident ones. There are others, of course. I didn't refer to all of them because it would have taken most of the presentation to speak about that. And many of those are quite common throughout probably Europe, but especially Central and Eastern Europe. And yes, after actually in parallel with these increasing pressures and threats, we had the awakening phenomena, I like to call it, because of course the immediate reaction was establishing Romanian grassroots with smaller or larger tasks in their minds, nice visions or plans for tomorrow or big visions for the future. And we did benefit a lot from international NGOs, from the presence and support of international NGOs. And I think that really helped. Learning from others helped us to bridge some gaps and to address some of these threats much quicker than it would have happened normally. And yes, in 2000, we started at least, or early 2000, the NGO started to prepare for the accession. But in the meantime, we had our first results, tangible results in conservation, and that was the protected area system, the protected area law, the first management plans done in a participatory way. So really laying the foundations of the protected area system in Romania, and that happened in the early 2000s. With many new national parks established and new administrations after the 3 model ones established in 2001. And yes, we could become then members of the European Union. And we are in delay with the designation of SPAs and SCIs. But the good news is that with support and actually push from the NGO coalition, with help from other external support from other NGOs, we did manage to increase our national protected area system from the 8%, what we had as national nature parks and reserves, to initially 17% in 2008 through the Natura 2000 network. And nowadays, we have actually almost a quarter of the country covered by protected areas, because Natura 2000 is part of the protected area system. Natura 2000 sites are considered protected areas. We are even having in some of the management plans, the IUCN management categories put in brackets. We now hopefully will have in the new legislation possibility and the recommendation to put categories next to Natura 2000 sites to clarify, to have an easier understanding of the management objectives and so on. So it's really Natura 2000 is considered an organic part of our protected area system. CEWeb helped a lot here, and yes, I think this was actually one of the huge gains of the accession, because together with the designation, of course, we had the money allocated from the Commission, and that was the only money we had for conservation actions, activities, since I know myself in this domain. So the Romanian government actually never allocated money for conservation for protected areas other than the money from the European Commission and a very small budget for the Danube Delta. Otherwise, only in the last 2 years, actually 3, the National Agency for Protected Areas recently established has some money, but only for salaries, so not for conservation. So that being the situation, the accession, EU membership status really, really helped a lot. And I think we progressed a lot with the conservation work. Just very quickly how it looks, our protected area system, because protected areas are one of the key tools for conservation. We have an interesting system, which is quite interesting, I would say. The Danube Delta Biosphere Reserve is managed by a team which is subordinated to the Ministry of Environment, but the rest of the protected areas can be subcontracted to institutes, companies like the National Forest Administration, county councils, whoever has the capacity, including NGOs. And these entities can manage either large protected areas, establishing administrations with scientific councils and the consultative council as a mechanism to involve stakeholders, or to manage small areas with 2-3 people for small teams. This is a very good system, I think, and I can argue on this and I can speak about this for hours if you like. It's a delegated system, mixed delegated participatory system, which would work very well if you would have money. But here, actually, one of the pillars was really completely missing. So all these entities were working from their own resources or projects, which is not the best combination. Yes, we had people in the ministry responsible for protected areas, but also for many other things. So we couldn't expect not even technical support too much from them. However, this system actually helped the social actors to wake up and to become active. And what you see here, it's a group of NGO people, actually from one of the most active NGOs, who acted also as protected area managers officially based on a contract with the ministry. And they are in the management planning process. It also, sorry, the picture here, it's from Bulgaria, helped having NGOs and other entities involved in the management of protected areas. It also helped awareness raising, and we did have some demonstrations on the streets like Bulgaria, not for a national park, but for a region which was pressured and threatened by mining. But yes, these NGOs, these entities that got involved in management, in the protected area management, did a lot of awareness raising. We also did a lot of involvement of stakeholders. Here you have foresters working with protected area administrators to learn about how to adapt forest management to the management plan requirements. And a lot of participatory processes started because these entities, other than the state ones, were and are very open to go into participatory planning and management. The other area where we did develop, I think, quite a lot, and we are, I think Romania is a pioneer country in this domain, is capacity building for protected area managers and for stakeholders. And I dare to say this because I am directly involved in this ProPark Foundation, and I know what we did and what is around the world related to occupations in protected areas. So I think we made a good big step in getting these occupations like the protected area specialist rangers recognized and having programs that are certified officially. Yes, we do not have yet the recognition, full recognition, because we do not have yet a condition for protected area management people to have any kind of certificates, but I think we are on the way to get there. But in 2018, this nice delegated system changed. We as NGOs were dreaming to have a national protected agency, and the dream was fulfilled in 2016. Actually, during the technocratic government, it was established officially. But then, with the new government in 2018, this agency became not the technical arm, coordination, visioning entity, the entity who fights for money in the state budget for protected areas and biodiversity conservation, but it actually took over the management of protected areas. So besides some entities who are still managing some protected areas without money, just like before, this national agency established regional offices and took over the management of protected areas, a kind of bulk management, with no teams in place. 4 people, for example, for 180,000 hectares of protected areas. Nothing happens since then. And they are understaffed, low level of competencies, no budget for protected area management. But one of the main achievements, so to say, was that this system pushed away NGOs from the management arrangements, mainly, and this is almost word by word written in the justification for this change when the law changed, because NGOs are hindering development, because these NGOs, some of them did not approve some of the investment projects that were wanted politically. So with this change and with the still existing challenges, some of the highest one being the very diverse ownership, land ownership in our protected areas, especially in national parks. As you can see here in the Retezat National Park, each of the colors is another owner. The yellow is state, but the rest are different owners. So as a protected area manager, you have to facilitate the understanding, the involvement, the participation of these stakeholders. You have to, of course, you have restrictions, but no compensation payments, at least not entirely, not fully for the restrictions. They are tell you about those forests, and with a state mechanism which doesn't really function when it comes about law enforcement. So these challenges are there. Threats are still there, and this is, yes, an old overview. We did a rapid assessment of protected area management effectiveness in 2005, and these are the graphics from the threats and pressures. And I would dare to say not much changed since then. Here we have logging in national parks as one main threat. And that might still be true, but only for the buffer zones, so not for the core zones. However, it is still there, and all the other pressures are still present. Probably less than in the early 2000s, but they are there. So where are we looking? What is the future prospect in these conditions with changes in the legislation, in the management responsibilities, with still existing pressures, very low political level to change something for biodiversity conservation? Well, let me tell you a few positive things and some of those which are really lacking support. Things that are giving hope, but also still keeping some concerns in the conservation world. First, I would like to say that, yes, we have a protected area vision for Romania. This is not a vision developed by the national agency. This was developed in 2018, actually in a process of 2 years by the NGO coalition. We did involve the ministry, we did involve the then recently established National Agency for Protected Areas and many other entities. But this is still our vision of the coalition. We were hoping that it will be on the table of the national agency as a start for a new strategy. It's not yet there. Hope that we'll have to change it by the time they will pick it up to start a strategy for for Romania's protected areas and biodiversity. We do not have yet a biodiversity strategy, but now there is a huge pressure from the Commission, from the European Commission, to develop one. This vision looks into representativeness, efficiency, financial and technical resources, professional capacity, public awareness and education, and contribution of these protected areas, especially to rural development. But I'm not going to go into details. What is interesting to show you is that in 2017, actually, we started to put on paper some figures, and we did agree, all of us, that we want this figure to become reality in the future. And we want 12% of our country to be national parks. In the condition having now only 3%, we want 30% of protected areas. You see, it's very much along the lines of the biodiversity strategy. We didn't know yet then about the discussions of the 30%. And we do hope that all of our national parks will soon have 70% fire or strict protection in national parks. Now it's an average, let's say, of, well, between 50 and 60%. For this last one, we are now working on the new legislation with the ministry. I mean, when I say we, it's the NGO community, the NGO coalition, and there is a goodwill even in the government, the ministry, I mean, to have this put in the law and ask national parks to have a strategy to become real category 2 protected areas. However, we still have this gap between the world of conservationists, which is not only NGOs, of course, it is the protected area administrations, which are within the National Forest Administration, university research institutes, and the political world and the world of resource users who are less open and have less understanding of the changes in the world and the needs to really consider conservation. And this gap is there. And I can show you some of the topics where the balance is going mostly to the left side. Like, for example, with the pristine, primeval, ancient forests, however you call them, strict protection was started by NGOs. It was picked up by the governments. I will tell you more about this. The protected area law, yes, it was done by the government, but then later made a mess. So we are now working together for a new protected area law. Protected area management plans were mostly done by the group on the left side, some on the right-hand side, but unfortunately the guidelines are a mess today. We had very good guidelines. Now it changed. Hopefully the ministry shows openness to change the guidelines again. National plans, action plans for species, these are happening in various projects, mainly due to universities, research institutes, NGOs, but with support from the government. And capacity building is to a certain extent happening on both sides, so to say, with different intensities and structure, but it's happening. And I will very quickly go on what are the positives today and the hopes for the future. I hope you still have a little bit of patience. I told you it's a lot to say and still not covering all. But I'm going back to the nice fairy tale pictures, and I will insert on them what are the hopes, the successes, the hopes for the future, or the major concerns. So for the unfragmented mountain range, actually our core areas of national parks are very well protected. There are very, very few exceptions. So whenever you hear some news that forests in this and that national park in the core area were illegally harvested, it's not true. Sometimes we read in the Romanian newspapers news that the Retezat National Park, the core area, was destroyed. It's there. I was there. I checked. It's there. The forests are there. The core area was not affected. This is Due to National Forest Administration, so the management teams which are within the National Forest Administration and the county councils that are managing national parks. So this is their merit. They are doing a good job there. Lots to do still on the general management of protected areas, but this part is well done. A new national park initiative, a huge one in the Făgăraș Mountain. This is started again from a bottom-up approach by Foundation Conservation Carpathia, but before that by the locals. However, it lacks political will. We'll see what the pressure of the new biodiversity strategy will mean. However, this will be a very, very long process. We are, as ProPark, involved. We think that it will take at least 10 years to get this done. New infrastructure, it is still a threat, especially roads, beautiful infrastructure, as they call it, that shows you the wonderful landscapes of the Carpathians. Hopefully there will be not many from now on. The unfragmented forests. We have a wood tracking system, which was very much improved in 2022. That looks in an incredible way, or can look in an incredible way, from the moment when you select the trees to the moment when it enters the final factory, what happened and from where the trees are coming. We have a public tool, the Forest Inspector. You look on your phone when you see a load of timber on the number of the car, and you can immediately find out if it's a legal or illegal transport, and you can alert the police. And that's the doing of the Ministry of Environment, with support, of course, from various specialists. And we finally have a strategic planning process for forests. The good news, it is led by universities, which is a good thing, a new thing, and of course supported by the ministry. And we have huge hopes that finally some reform will start in the forestry sector. Large carnivores, well, yes, 2016 there was a hunting ban, and the Ministry of Environment did that, but everything else is red on my screen. Inventory monitoring, we are nowhere. Preventing, managing human-wildlife conflicts, nothing really substantial is happening. The legal framework is changing, but not helping at all. Lack of capacity and resources to manage the populations and the conflicts with the hunting associations and the ministry. There is a compensation system, but not fully functional, and people do not trust it. However, there are some goods here as well, model projects, mainly done by universities, research institutes, and NGOs, like corridor designation and management. Yes, how to prevent human-wildlife conflicts, but these are on small areas, unfortunately. And the main actors are NGOs like Foundation Conservation Carpathia, FFI, and others. There is a national action plan, which is good, but it's not yet, for at least for bears and wolves, not for lynx, but the implementation is not really there. And recently there was a national level inventory project approved. We don't know yet how it will work, but hopefully we'll finally have some figures on how the population is, or on the population, some data, not figures necessarily. Pristine ancient forests. Yes, NGOs pushed and obtained an order in 2012 for protection of about 200,000 hectares, which were identified in a study in 2003. Unfortunately, this became the strict protection came obligatory only in 2016 with establishing the National Catalogue of Virgin Forests. And since then, we have about 70,000 hectares of our pristine forests, close to pristine forests included in the catalogue, mainly due to NGOs, universities, research institutes. And here I know that there are Czech colleagues from some of the universities working in our country to help us with this. And it's a slow progress, but it's there. Compensation payments for strict protection, yes, we managed to do that for forests in 2016. Unfortunately, the allocation and ends in 2021, I really hope that the ministry will pick this up and there will be continuity in compensation payments. 100 euros per hectare for landowner for strictly protected forests, for the pristine forests or other strictly protected forests, and 50% or 50 euro per hectare for forests with environmental service role. Models for protecting privately owned virgin forests are also quite a few on the field. Free roaming European bison, we have 3 places with over 100 individuals. This is due to the National Forest Administration, WWF, and FCC Foundation Carpathia. But with our waters, we have actually, as we speak, a change in the legislation to allow hydropower investments in national parks and Natura 2000 sites. We do hope this will be stopped. And the Danube Delta, all I can say is that's the only protected area with a 1 million euro per year. It's not enough. It's not enough happening there. The pressures are huge, but that's the situation. And our hope for the future is that the gap, which you saw in a previous slide, will not be so big anymore between these two groups. We did start to discuss, we did start to work together, sometimes 2 steps ahead, 1 back, depending on the political configuration. But there is hope that we will do more and more. And I think we did a lot in these last 20 years, much more than we maybe were thinking realistically. We were hoping for more, but realistically thinking, knowing the situation in Romania, if I'm trying to be fair, I should say that we did a lot. And yes, a lot of people, and that's probably the biggest achievements. We have so many wonderful people now involved who are learning and growing and having passion. So I do hope that we are going to do even more if everything goes in a more or less normal way in our country and in our part of the world. Thank you very much.
Well, many thanks, Erika, for your very nice and interesting lecture. And now I'm opening the discussion. I don't see any question in the chat, but there are some raising hands. Katerina Antonova.
I'm sorry, it wasn't a raised hand. I just
Okay.
I just wanted to thank you for the lecture. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
Okay, perhaps I will start with the questions. Okay, I have several questions. The first is concerning forests. My question is, did the illegal logging and constructions lead to some judgments by court? And what is the perspective for the future? Do you expect an increasing pressure on logging in the forest, perhaps also in the connection with some energetic crisis? I don't know to what extent Romania depends on the gas from Russia, for instance. So could you comment this?
Yeah.
issue?
Well, yes, there were quite a few legal court cases on illegal logging, especially between 2008 and 2012, 14 actually. They are still ongoing. We do not know yet really striking results. That's one of the issues of corruption in Romania, that this legal system is, the court system is not working very well. So I can't say that the court cases helped a lot reducing the illegal logging. However, the SUMAL, this tracking system and the tool, it did help incredibly. Anyhow, as I said, there are not so obvious illegal logging situations. However, the National Forest Inventory shows still a very high level of illegal cutting. Well, it's dangerous what I'm saying now because the interpretation is not exactly about illegal logging, but what the National Forest Inventory says, and this is public data, is that if we have 20 million cubic meters allowance per year for our timber harvesting. In the country, actually, there is an average harvesting of 40 million cubic meters. It is, I can't even sometimes pronounce it. However, please be aware, this is not entirely the illegal logging part, because they are including here the private small lands, agricultural lands, which are not considered forests. However, it's still millions. So whatever nicely we try to present it, it's huge. And it's done in ways that it's even more difficult to discover, and it's not so easy to take things to court. However, they did improve the SUMAL now. And the key point here is actually that there is a huge need of timber. And you were asking about the firewood. 40% of our population lives in rural areas, and most of these rural areas are depending on wood. And we did calculations in 2016. The need of firewood is around 8-9 million cubic meters, which is not coming from the legal logging. I'm sorry to say, it's not enough. The legal logging is not enough for this. So there are questions there which should be answered. What are the causes? And to add to this another factor, to some of you who are foresters, the National Forest Inventory says that, look guys, yes, till 1990, you established through your forest management plans that you can harvest 20 million cubic meters. And that's fine. That was the methodology till then.
Yeah.
But the National Forest Inventory shows that we could officially and nicely and legally and correctly harvest 38 million cubic meters.
Yeah.
Our forests allow it, at least the production forest, not the protection forest.
Yeah.
But nobody dares to open the discussion from the political world. Nobody. Just imagine a governmental team that is opening up this question and says upfront, here we have enough wood, we should improve our energy efficiency, we should find solutions for the villages. Nobody is discussing in a picture which looks comprehensively to this issue. So yes, I think unfortunately the pressure on the forest will stay from this point of view. And I'm not sure who has the answer to this solution.
Thank you. Ondřej Vídek has a question.
Hello, I also want to thank you for your nice presentation. I've got just one very short question. You mentioned also rangers. Have you got some professional rangers too, or only voluntary ones?
We do have professional rangers. All the national and nature parks have teams of rangers, teams of at least 10, 12 rangers, not enough, not even close to enough to what is needed, but they are hired as rangers. Many of them did some courses to develop their professional knowledge. It's still a lot to do, but there are some wonderful teams. And we do have a nice example of a ranger team who is now working to implement the SMART system. I don't know if you heard about it, using a very advanced technical system to collect information from the field, to interpret, to find the best spots to intervene. It's just one test, but there is a hopeful development of the ranger activities in the country. Okay, so yes, we have professional rangers. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Further questions? Please use the unique opportunity to discuss the conservation in Romania. So my second question is about protected areas. You have mentioned the number 23% of the country covered by protected areas, and my question is, what is the coverage only by Natura 2000 sites from this number, and has been the process of the national list sent to Brussels of the Natura 2000 site, has this process been already finished, closed, or are there still some discussion between NGOs, state and the European Commission? Because we know this process from the Czech Republic. We had several so-called biogeographical seminars discussing some controversial sites of Natura 2000, such as the Elbe River Valley, for instance. So the process was quite long.
Well, yes, most of the 23% is Natura 2000 sites overlapping to the national system. Unfortunately, we did ask the ministry several times to give us the figures. We have an issue with this database and the borders and limits and maps of transparency. But it's a very small percentage of national protected areas of national interest that are not in the Natura 2000 site. So more or less all of it, 20% of it is Natura 2000. The process is not fully closed. There are some species and habitats where we still have to designate. However, we are lagging behind and there are not even discussions. We do hope, all of us, and the NGO world is preparing another shadow list-like process for these species and habitats for which we still have to designate. So the process is not closed. There was not much discussion about this because everybody was concentrating on management planning mainly. But now, just yesterday, we had the European Commissioner on Environment saying, look, guys, you have to start to think how to close this designation process. So same situation.
Okay. Thank you very much. Dan Leština has a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Stanciu, for the great lecture and very insightful. I learned a lot about like recent developments and the system in Romania. For me, I've been there many times in various natural areas of your country, but this was like new from me to see it from the other side. For me, it was always like this fairy tale land. So forgive me if my questions are a bit naive, but I wanted to ask, coming from this perspective as a outsider visitor, my thought of how to conserve most of the richness which you guys have over there would be to try as much as possible to preserve the traditional way of rural agricultural life, to preserve sheep flocks coming across the mountains, to preserve I don't know, hay harvesting, and even if it means every now and then, like some old lady coming to the forest and taking some wood from it, and even if it means, I don't know, if some areas are a little bit overgrazed and 1 year and it could fix the other year, and so on. So it will be my first question. What's your view on this, and how does the state and system views the rural population, and how the NGO and international organizations view this, perhaps on one side conflict and on the other side potential which is preserved in the Romanian rural areas, unlike many other parts of Europe?
Very good question, and I will try to tell you how we think and feel, but that's a very, very complex issue. I think we conservationists, the conservation world, moved away from significantly from the belief that we can preserve things as they are. That's obvious. And also the pressures from intensive agriculture, large farms, is really increasing in areas where we never thought it will happen. I mean, in areas where the communists did not set up cooperatives, because it was difficult, the hilly areas. Now the intensive agriculture is there, and they have all the means to destroy these pastures and agricultural land. So, and they are fencing a lot. So the pressure is huge, and it is happening. The actual rural population, even though there are good villages, a lot of villages, especially in parts of the country where it is not depopulated, but it's a growing old population. And we know that we will face the same situation and the same problems as in Central Europe and the rest of Western Europe, where they completely disappeared. However, what we do and what we hope to manage, at least to preserve in some parts of our country, this rural landscape with green lifestyle, with a quality of life which is maintained high through the management of the land, be it agricultural land, hay meadow or forest. And this means to concentrate. That's what we think. We hope to concentrate efforts and resources in some of the most valuable areas, and demonstrate there that it's possible to live from this rural landscape without changing it significantly. And there are efforts in ecotourism, in rural development, in helping strategic planning and bringing in projects. But I have to say that we are not yet there to be able to demonstrate that this will work. So I can't say, if I look deeply inside, I can't say we are very optimistic without real financial and political support. And actually the Green Deal and the biodiversity strategy gave us some hope that there will be a possibility to this. What I can say as a positive aspect, many Romanians are waking up, and there is a migration from the cities to the villages. There is an awakening of the value of the local food. A huge increase in visiting our beautiful country sites. So there is hope, but there is no strategy in place how to address this really with a clear mind, that putting the money and the resources where it should be. It's not there yet, unfortunately. And these last planning periods with the recovery funds showed it that yes, it's there in nice big words, but the actual strategy behind it, it's not there, unfortunately. So that's all I can say for the moment. However, it's still 40% of the rural population, of the population of Romania, and still depending a lot on the local resources. So probably the process is still slow enough to give us a chance to save some of these areas. That's the best I can tell you now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, great to hear some hope from you. That's that's perfect. My second question was about one specific. You call it fairy tale, or I don't know to which extent it is a fairy tale. Something which also reached the Czech media in recent years is somehow the bear problem getting bigger, the conflict between people in the rural areas and also tourists and the bear population. I mean, my Romanian is not great, so I haven't. Perhaps I haven't understood everything. I don't read the Romanian media, but from Czech media and from some small talks with people in Romania, I've been told that that the problem is somehow much bigger than a few years ago with the hunting ban, and but some other people also say that. It is made much worse by some irresponsible people feeding the bears and luring them to the populated parts of the country and showing them to tourists. So I was a bit cautious to believe everything and wanted to ask you for the comment on this story or situation.
Thank you. I will be very honest on this, and it's a painful honesty, because this ban was taken in 2016 by the technocratic government when I was part of the team. I can say I wasn't part of the ban team, but it doesn't matter. I was part of the ministry team. And actually, this is our responsibility. And I think it was a very bad decision. even if I'm not a hunter, and I don't think that hunting is the method to, or shouldn't be the method to control any population, never mind a species which is disappearing from Europe. But it was a very bad decision to have a ban without a complex system of measures to prevent the conflicts. I don't know if anybody can really demonstrate now in the country that after 6 years we have an indeed increased population. Nobody knows, because actually the feeding stopped, or most cases stopped. The hunters do not feed them anymore because they can't get money for them. They can't shoot, at least not officially, so they don't feed them. The bears are on their own. There is a natural regulation in the population. I just heard yesterday a story of from a private forest owner and manager who said that they really capture on their cameras large areas of their property, and they saw that very few bear cubs are surviving because the male cubs are killing them, for example. And there are a lot of increase in poaching on bears. Of course, shepherds and local people, when the bear enters their courtyard, will not just sit and say, look, ministries, do something. They are taking in their hands. And that happened in other countries when a total ban brought with itself a lot of poaching. What is worse in this situation, even worse, beside the fact that actually I think the population is being harmed in a way that we don't even know, the conflict, yes, increased a lot. And even the fear, not even in areas where there is no conflict, the fear to large carnivores, to bears, increased to levels where it will be difficult to put an equilibrium as we thought we have before. And here is the big minus. Whereas till 2016, the NGO, the conservation community, not only NGOs, universities and others, and the hunters were in a dialogue trying to find the complex methods for bear population management, which would have meant a lot of things, not just hunting. And the dialogue was quite advanced. Because of the ban, this dialogue stopped. And now we are not speaking to each other. We are not finding solutions. So we are just seeing the problems, and nobody finds even the smallest solution. If I would like to say the easiest I can say, nobody does any kind of education or awareness raising how to behave when you meet a bear. Nobody says that the bear is not eating you up. It's running away in 99% of the cases. And how should you react if they are not running away? Or how should you camp, or how nothing is happening to find solutions. So I am not very hopeful in this. Even the measures the ministry are taking now by putting the responsibility of taking away habituated bears from communities, putting this responsibility on the shoulders of the mayor, doesn't solve anything. A person who had never heard about how to handle these situations have to now solve the problem. So the ministry pushed the problem on the mayors. I can't see, unfortunately, a good outcome here and very soon. And the population, the bear population, is really it's taking the toll actually on them, not on the people. So I don't, this is the one, as you saw, one of, however positive I would have tried or wanted to be, I can't. And I'm sorry to say this is started by the technocratic government. This is one that was not well handled.
Yeah, thank you. I sort of sense this kind of communication and problem and the fear among the people there. But I wanted to ask about the reality about the conflicts, and to which the answer is you have no data how serious it really is, and nobody knows. That's bad.
No.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually a great.
Just to tell you, the actual conflicts, the actual bear people conflict, are in 90% of the cases provoked by people, of course, but even this is not known exactly and not communicated correctly. So whenever it happens, it is everybody says because there are too many bears, or the bears became aggressive. Most cases, if you start to study them, is a shepherd who tries to take his sheep from the bear, or a tourist who has a dog and wants to save the dog from the bear, or a tourist who actually poked the bear or wanted to feed the bear. And this is what is triggering the actual conflict. But nobody says the reality, not even that. We don't even know how many of the conflicts of the actual happenings is because the bears change behavior, or, so there is no data, no information, so you can't find solutions, unfortunately. So
thank you. I wanted to say it's a great inspiration for the nature protection in our country as well, where we have unfortunately we don't have any bear problems, but we do have wolf increasing population and so on. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Further questions? In this case, I have my third question, and this is about the international cooperation. You have already mentioned some protests by international NGOs against the logging of the pristine and old-growth forests in Romania. I remember, for instance, the picture from some newspaper with Johannes Knapp, the head of the International Academy of the Film in Germany. So my question is, these protests were at the end really helpful to make some pressure on the Romanian government. And then I have a question regarding the broader international cooperation in conservation of the Carpathians. If you can mention the cooperation with other countries, including Ukraine, and there are some frameworks such as Carpathian Convention, for instance, and as I know, there is some sites in Ukraine and Slovakia are protected even by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, together with the beech forest in Germany. So are there some similar areas covered by UNESCO also in Romania, etc.?
Yeah. Well, very simply, protests do not help. Didn't help at all. So it's just as plain simple. And international pressure generally, except the one from the European Commission, is not really helping. For example, now with the micro hydropower law, we wanted to raise or to ask the IUCN to intervene, but those are not counting really. The only environmental protests which worked to a certain extent were the ones that were trying to stop the gold mining with cyanide. Those were huge, and those stopped an investment which would have harmed nature a lot, but otherwise are not really working. So this is an easily answerable question, unfortunately. Regarding the international work, yes, we are, of course, many of our protected areas are part of the Carpathian network of protected areas. Unfortunately, as I feel it personally, it's not a very, very active network. It has some activities now and then, some meetings. As WWF person, we used, in a good sense, this network to promote some projects, experience exchanges, and I think they are still happening. There is a nice platform that has been set up for this, but I don't feel a lot of positive energy on the side of the Romanian protected, the Carpathian protected areas to be very active in this. And that's understandable when you don't have really resources, when you are overloaded with the everyday pressures and political aspects, you do not have a lot of energy for cooperation. But there were a few nice projects with the Ukrainian colleagues especially. So to a certain extent is working. Yes, we do have UNESCO sites for preserving our pristine and old growth forests. The same project as the Ukrainian, it was done in the similar way and in a similar project. We have 7 sites. One is very close to where I live in the Carpathians. Here, I'm just sitting a few kilometers away. It's a pristine forest which is a UNESCO site. It has 800 hectares. It's just a miracle, which is on the side of the road and still exists. So the private owner did not harvest it. So yes, we have UNESCO sites, and I can invite you to come and see it easily without having to hike hours and hours. So in this respect, these international cooperations are helping a lot. When it's about concrete projects, which with concrete outcomes and some, at least one Romanian actor that knows the policies and the network and the, how to work with the government to make this happen, they help a lot. But demonstrations or letters of concern or things like this, well, for the media is good for awareness raising, but politicians do not care about it. Not even about the infringement if we discuss about that, but they have to at some point, even if they don't want to.
Okay,
so this is not an optimistic, nice way, but that's the reality. I can't hide it.
Okay, thanks. Further question? It is not the case. So many thanks to all of you, especially to Erika Stanciu for the very nice lecture, and many thanks also for the nice discussion. And I wish to all of you a blessed Easter holiday, and I look forward to meeting you personally or virtually in a near future. So
thank you very much for inviting me. Have a nice Easter. Bye.
bye.